Hi, and welcome back to the RP Book Club. I am so glad to be back and bringing you another interview with one of Rebellion's brilliant authors in my classic, chaotic, full of tangent fashion. This episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by the incredible Aliya Whiteley to chat about her novel Skyward Inn, which we brought out in paperback not too long ago. Our mutual love of Daphne Du Maurier and Rebecca in particular, and so much more. Enjoy the show, and I'll be back at the end with your discount code as always, and the info about who my next guest will be. Aliya Whiteley writes across many different genres and lengths. Her first published full-length novels, Three Things About Me and Light Reading, were comic crime adventures. Her 2014 sci-fi horror novella, The Beauty, was shortlisted for the James Tiptree and Shirley Jackson Awards. The following historical sci-fi novella, The Arrival of Missives, was a finalist for the Campbell Memorial Award, and her noir novel, The Loosening Skin, was shortlisted for the Arthur C. Clarke Award. Published in 2020, her novels Greensmith and the one we're here to talk about, Skyward Inn, have been works of speculative fiction. She's written over 100 published short stories that have appeared in Interzone, Beneath Ceaseless Skies, Black Static, Strange Horizons, The Dark McSweeney's Internet Tendency, and The Guardian, as well as in anthologies such as Unsung Stories 2084 and Lonely Planet Better Than Fiction. She also writes a regular nonfiction column for Interzone. Welcome to the RP Book Club.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me along.
So excited to have you. And we've had, I think, a record number of reader and listener questions in for
brilliant.
This. So everyone was very much looking forward to this episode.
Okay, well, I'll do my best then.
For anyone who hasn't read Skyward Inn yet, and I feel like I'm trying to think of people I know who haven't read it yet, but we'll assume there are lots of people out there who maybe haven't had a chance to pick it up. How would you describe it?
I'm famously quite rubbish at describing things that I've written. I would say it's a story of two people from different worlds who come together to run a pub, and then they find out that they didn't know each other at all. I guess that's one way of describing it. Yeah, they think they're in love, but maybe they're not. See, I told you I was terrible at this. There's lots of other stuff.
No, I like that. It's very
a story
good.
of what it takes to be together with somebody, and that's whether that's as a couple or parental sort of generational relationships as well, or as societies. It's about what we need to do to make ourselves known to each other.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, see, that's not rubbish at all. That was very good.
All right.
I'm diving right into one of my sort of bigger questions here, but thinking about that, and in terms of themes, I mean, am I writing a thesis? Maybe themes of the book. It feels like a project.
I like
it. One of the main ones, I mean, that we've kind of already talked about there is sort of loneliness and division. I feel like that's incredibly relevant to how so many people feel. I mean, not just in the backdrop of the pandemic, but in general, I feel like, the more we're connected in terms of technology and instant messaging and always being available, often the less that we actually feel we're having a shared experience, or that we're able to connect with someone on a more human level.
Yes.
Was that what you were keen to explore here, and sort of what was it that made you want to kind of explore and dig into that in Skyward Inn?
I think you're absolutely right. In some ways, it is a book about how we're meant to feel more united and global and connected than ever before. But in many ways, people seem to feel that less than ever, because although just like this morning, we can do the miracle of speaking to each other over screens, and that's amazing. That's hugely connective, right? But something is missing from that experience, and I find it hard to put in words what that is. So I think a lot of my books are explorations of something that I'm struggling to understand, and the way that we feel less connected to each other, even though global connectivity has happened, is a huge part of that. So yeah, I mean, I started writing the book before the pandemic. I've written 2 books recently that have viruses in them, and then we had a virus, and now I won't write anymore with viruses in because I'm fed up. But, so it was interesting how those elements of the book, sort of feelings of connectivity or whatever, became really relevant to the way that we all had to live for a while there. Just seeing family from this long distance over a screen. And quite often when I'm interested in something, a particular angle in something, I remove it in order to look more closely at it.
Right.
Like if you remove it from the text, then other things around it come into better focus and you see the space that's left. And so in some ways, I think that's probably the beginning of the Protectorate, which is this area that has decided to issue all kind of technology. And on the other hand of that, we have the coalition who have totally embraced it and want to implant things in your head and you to be totally, 24/7 going for it in the globally connected arena. So yeah, sort of putting those 2 things up against each other. I enjoyed asking those questions. I never find any good answers, but I do like the questions.
It's like any sort of philosophical question. I feel that really there are no answers. I mean,
No.
this is where I boil down. I've talked about this a couple of times on the show. I did a philosophy degree before all of this, and essentially the thing I feel it taught me the most is just there are probably no answers, and you have to kind of accept that.
Yes. Yes, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't ask the questions, right? We got to ask.
No, exactly. Yeah, it's a weird headspace to live in. I feel like it's something philosophy students and sci-fi authors do the most.
Sharing that space, right? I love that. Absolutely.
Thinking about, since we kind of touched on it there, the world that Skyward Inn is set in, one of the things that I was talking to a friend about it who really loved the book. We were kind of chatting in the run up to doing this record. And she had really enjoyed the fact that it's set rurally, that it's not, so much sci-fi, these big cityscapes and, that can be really interesting to explore. But I think she was mentioning that she really hadn't seen a lot that was more rural. What was it that made you want to set it in that kind of environment?
As I said, there's like the fact that I felt comfortable removing technology from it. I think part of that goes back to the fact that I was brought up in Devon. And so I've set it kind of in the West Country because I feel really comfortable setting things there and manipulating them. I feel like that's okay somehow. I don't know why that works, but also I first had the idea for the novel driving back from Devon. I'd just been to visit family down there. And so I'm moving sort of through that landscape. I think I was actually just reaching up to Stonehenge, and there was a program on Radio 4 about a Japanese whiskey manufacturer who decided to sell up and come and live in Scotland, and just set up a magnificent bar to just sell different types of whiskies.
Oh, wow.
In Scotland, and he was talking about what that experience was like, and it just felt like a gift to kind of sci-fi those kind of themes and ideas. So I sort of mashed all of that together. But yeah, I don't see an awful lot of very rural sci-fi. And in some ways that appeals to me more than vast cityscapes, although I would love to do that properly one day, do a great big cityscape kind of story. I think it's interesting as well that when we get to Kita, the other planet, I think I kind of put that forward as quite rural as well. I mean, there are towns and things happening, but it's quite a stripped back kind of environment there as well. So yeah, that was obviously on my mind, perhaps purely because of the place I was driving through at the time.
Sort of through osmosis, it just sort of went in.
Yeah, maybe that's it. And the moment we were talking about pubs and inns and things, I've always been fascinated by Jamaica in Daphne Du Maurier's novel, and that started to sort of seep in truly and properly with smugglers and things like that sort of making an appearance. And I liked the idea of smugglers of technology in and out of this place, which is saying we've got nothing, we're not doing that. But in actual fact, it's all bleeding in all the time from the outside. So in order for that to work, it had to be a place that seemed very sort of remote, although that's not the truth of it. Over the water, you can see the rockets rising up through the sky. They're only sort of 25 miles away or whatever. So yeah, there are lots of different ways that those ideas of technology and rural and cityscapes rubbed up against each other, if I set it there, that I liked. Yeah.
Really interesting. And it kind of made me wonder about why we don't see that more, because it's such, like you say, it's the perfect backdrop for exploring those kind of conflicts and taking what we'll experience in terms of sort of technology and where we choose to use it, if we want to take a break from it and all of those things, and taking those contrasts and really just amping them up and like we've said, asking the bigger questions about what's really good for us here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in some ways maybe I wouldn't say I'm a little bit lazy, but I do like to sort of get to it in 60,000 words rather than 250,000 words. And I think if I was going to do 250,000 words, then I would invest in building. I would have built something like the coalition very carefully and on a vast scale, and we would have had these great cityscapes and whatever. But no, so
just no.
If I was gonna make it 4 times the length, I would have done that, but I'm not going to. So that's that.
No, I like it. I love it. No, I really enjoy that kind of punchiness and the fact that we get to the point. Sometimes I find really, really, really long books, not just genre or sci-fi, but anything, I find myself just chomping at the bit to get to something actually happening. And it's like, this world building is beautiful, but I can't do that much more of it. We've got to do something.
I'm a terrible skipper if I'm reading a long book. I'm like, skip. I think I got that from doing Thomas Hardy early on at sort of A-level English, and I learned to sort of skip 5 pages. I love Thomas Hardy, she said, but I do find I can be a skipper. And when I write, I think quite often I'm just leaving out the bits that I would probably have skipped.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping people will fill in with imagination and do the work for me. It's probably not laziness. It's probably something better than that, right? But I
feel like it gives you more freedom as a reader to
I think so.
Have the book be everything is there for you to imagine and build it for yourself. I really like that. So I think it's that.
Yeah, I like that idea that you've given just enough information, and then the way you see it is the way that your imagination is choosing to present it to you. It's part of that dialogue between writers and readers that's so fascinating, isn't it? It's kind of what the writer chooses to tell you, and then the way that and what's interesting is, even if you do get these long books that describe everything in great detail and beautifully, you could still sit 2 readers down and they would have seen it completely differently. So that space is fascinating.
Absolutely. It's one of the things I wanted to ask about in terms of the structure of Skyward Inn, we have that kind of a 5-act structure that we kind of more typically see in theatre, plays, that kind of thing. I was interested to ask about how you think that influences how the reader interacts with the book compared to a more typical structure.
Yeah, I think I didn't know, excuse me, I didn't know it was going to turn into a 5-act structure, but when it did, I was delighted, because I come from a sort of theatre background anyway. When I first started writing, I was writing sort of theatre plays, and I think that's so satisfying in a way that's difficult to kind of put into words, but you feel like it reaches a proper denouement and you're done, and it's a satisfying arc. So yeah, that really worked for me. Not planned, but delighted that it did turn out that way.
That's really interesting. How did the plan change? I mean, obviously with the structure, but what was it like in terms of the actual process? So did you kind of start with the world or the characters, or did it just kind of come fully formed?
I had like this basic idea of an inn with two cultures kind of rubbing up against each other. And it's pretty usual for me to just sit down and start writing. I write in longhand. I have a cafe nearby that's very understanding. They just bring me the same thing every day. And
just keep them coming.
Yeah, here we go. And so I just started writing, and then I get sort of ideas of where I want it to go, but usually sort of like snapshots of moments.
Right.
And quite early on from that beginning, I wrote the beginning chapter, and then I knew I had the guide right at the end. And that was really what kept me going. The rest of it just sort of organically blagged out from there. So, but obviously, that's the longhand draft, and then you go back and make a lot of changes to make it kind of work. And particularly the final act got a lot of work put into it, because there's that sort of interplay between what's happening in the inn and what's happening on the other planet that needed to be exactly right. That was probably the trickiest bit of the writing. But the rest of it all kind of came quite organically. I didn't have a plan as such. I just had snapshots of moments. I think I had Foss meeting the other people at the farm and the moments that happened there quite clearly. Oh, and I had the moment where they introduce One with Isley to the villagers in the inn.
Yeah. It's
so those are like my touch points that I was working towards.
But
that's really interesting. Moments, kind of the things that come in that came right at the end that I didn't have at all, which is like the speech that the doctor gives right at the end, when changes have started to happen at the inn and he comes in there. I didn't have it at all, but often I find when I write, those are my favorite moments, are the ones that just come in right at the end. You've written everything else and you just like, it just needs something there. I like those ones.
A little sprinkle of magic at the end. Yeah, it's really interesting. I write much less successfully, but I do. And one of the things that the benefits for me personally of doing this podcast is been having a chance to talk to lots of different writers about how they write. And this is the first time that I feel like I've spoken to someone and you've described so brilliantly having those kind of moments that aren't necessarily connected to other things to begin with. Yeah. And I just assumed I'd been doing it wrong because I was having that.
No,
I don't know how it's gonna like fit in.
No, that's cool, because I've not really come across anybody else who does it like that as well. So, high five us there. Well,
virtual high five over Zoom.
High five. Yeah. Yeah, that's just the way, I've spoken to loads of writers, they all do it differently. But I just like that bit of, I did masters in library and information management, and I wrote a dissertation about how novelists in particular kind of research in order to begin to write. And quite often they described how they use research as kind of like the glue that forms the structure. And it's not even really about what you learn in research. It's just about feeling prepared to write.
Right.
I was really interested in that. And I think sometimes my moments that I see are kind of like that. They're kind of like the bricks that we get to start to build to write. And I need a few of them, and then I can just start making something. And I go, who knows? It's a weird business, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's really strange. And it's one of those things that I think has, being an author, being a writer, it's developed so much into something so different than I think it was, not that long ago, with sort of social media and actually being able to have a conversation with readers directly in a very literal sense. How do you find that?
There are times that I really enjoy that, and times when I find it gets in the way of me being able to do what I want to do. But I guess that's the same for everyone. I kind of like that romantic vision of writing sort of 100 years ago, whatever, when you had to see nobody. Like, no, I'm just going to sit in my room, create my magnum opus and send it out into the world.
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of what I was thinking about. It's one of those things. I feel like when I think about being an author, being a writer, the bit you kind of picture is sitting at a desk or in a coffee shop or somewhere, writing and sending it out to agents, editors, the world. And that's kind of it.
Yeah.
But the reality is you have to do things like this podcast and talk to people and do interviews and be on social media. And it's quite different,
really
I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because I enjoy doing this kind of thing. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's always lovely to talk about things you've created up in your own head. It's like, yeah, let's talk about the things I create. That's brilliant. So it's good, but in many ways, maybe it's a bit of a reconstruction after the fact. And I don't know. It's difficult to capture exactly how these things work. Or also, I kind of like the idea that I struggle to, like, you asked me what the book is about, and I struggle to answer questions like that only because I don't kind of want to say what the book is about for me and then start to structure it in a certain way. But I do understand that I'm not a 19th century novelist. I do have to actually, have opinions about these things and put some information out there. And that's cool. It's good.
Someday we'll invent time travel and go be 19th century novelists instead.
I'll just go over there, put my high lace collar on and go over there, and I'll come back later.
I have a fun reader question that somebody sent in. They wanted to know, if you owned a pub, what would you call it?
Oh, that's a great question. Oh, I like that. Gosh, that's really good. I think in 3 Things About Me, which is one of my very first books, I did have an inn that I created, and I got to name that totally. What did I call it? I think it was something like the Slaughter Inn or something like that, Lamb to the Slaughter. I think I might have been channeling American Werewolf in London. Is that called the Slaughtered Lamb or something like that? I can't remember what that's called.
I think so. I'm sure somebody will tell me that I'm wrong, but I think so.
Maybe something a bit sci-fi. Maybe something like the Xenomorph's head, something like that. They have a nice picture of a xenomorph with a.
Oh yeah, I love that. Yeah. I'll go there. Yeah,
don't
it was so.
beer there. I have to be honest. It's probably not good for you. Probably acid for beer or something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Oh.
I would be no good at that, running a pub whatsoever.
No.
Just writing about Jem proved to me, you know, she's this brilliant front of house person in the bar, and I have none of those talents whatsoever. So I was quite jealous of her ability to get along with everybody there.
Yeah. It's kind of like anything sort of customer facing. I've done those jobs in the past. It's very much like a performance. It's sort of it's acting. Yeah. It's and that can be really draining. So I felt the same. I felt completely the same.
So what we want is a pub with no customers. Okay, I can see why we're not in this trade.
Yeah, I don't know that we're going to be successful here.
Yeah, no, I can feel that we may have problems.
I don't know that anyone's going to sign off on this business plan.
No.
I was so happy when that question came in, because it's so good. I was trying to think about what I'd call a pub.
Yeah, what would you call one?
I can't come up with anything good. It's like, I don't know, because it's got to be like, it's always like something's head, or like a number of things. Like then I started just thinking about long drives, you know, to summer holidays, often down to Devon, and playing legs, which, if anyone doesn't know what this strange British car game is, it's when you're in the car and you have sides of the car. So the driver would have one side. If you're in the passenger seat, you'd be on the other side, like opposite teams. And you drive along, and every time you go past a pub on either side, the person on that side gets a number of legs, which are like points. And I always think about, like, there are some where if you get those, you just like immediately win, like horse and hounds, or it's usually something in hounds, fox and hounds, where it's like, it's like there are so many, and you don't know how many hounds, that essentially you just immediately win.
Yeah.
So I feel like my pub name would be something like that, where you just,
I don't know, the millipede. How many legs can we get in here?
Something where you just immediately win, which probably says a lot about me. Millipede's good. Or like
maybe like an entire team of something. I don't know, like a team of trying to think of a sport. That sport's not my area either, but some sport with loads of people.
You could do like a murder of crows or something.
Oh, that's a lot of legs, right?
Yeah, you could do that, and it's a great
pub name. I'd drink there.
I like it. I think I'd go for that.
Yeah.
But again, I think I would have the same problem, that I wouldn't really want to interact with that many people.
Well, if you're going murder of crows, you can get away with being all sort of dark and edgy, can't you? And
that's true.
It's for people who don't want to interact with other people. It's that kind of pub, because those exist as well. Like you turn up and lurk.
My 16-year-old goth self would be very proud of that as a pub. I'm going with that. With that. So we got the Xenomorph's head and the murder of crows.
Next to each other.
Yeah.
In
different
Devon.
crowds. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask like an actual question now. My friend's just like, what are you doing? We touched briefly on Daphne Du Maurier, who is Rebecca is the book that I will say is my favorite book when pushed, which I don't like making a call, but
Me too.
I have this copy.
Let me see.
I did line up specifically for this podcast. Is it upside down? No, there we go.
Look. That's beautiful. Is that Folio Society?
Yeah.
Have they done two copies then? Because I've got a Folio Society one and mine's different. Mine's different.
This one was, I think, a couple of years ago. I got it for my birthday, and it's got illustrations.
Oh, look at that. Mrs. Danvers there.
Yeah.
I'm aware this probably doesn't translate beautifully into the medium of audio, but it's
it's okay. I can describe it. So
yes,
Rosie is holding up a
large
hardback copy
with a beautiful R.
Yeah, it's my favorite book. I have a tradition whenever I go to Devon or Cornwall. I go into a charity shop and try and find another copy of Rebecca. So I pick up a copy pretty much every time I go. I think I have like a full shelf of them, of all different kinds and states of repairedness. So yes,
you beat me. I have three, but I have like one very old hardback that looks quite like that. It's a red with a embossed kind of R on the front, and then I have one of the Folio Societies later that was in a charity shop, and much like you, I couldn't leave it once I'd seen it, and then I've got one other copy as well. So yeah, you really love a book if you have more than one copy of it in your house, right?
yeah, definitely. I've made it a mission to essentially have as many different copies as possible, which my partner may or may not be thrilled about, considering how much space they're going to end up taking up.
This is the Rebecca room.
Yeah, just a whole room.
That's not at all creepy.
No, it's getting a bit shriny at that point.
Yes, you are turning into Mrs. Danvers. You like bring people into the Rebecca room. Yeah. This is so meta. I actually love this.
Yeah, just gradually
stroke my Rebecca copies.
That's my life goal. Gradually becoming Mrs. Danvers and having a Rebecca room.
Yeah.
And sort of standing creepily in the corner of the Murder of Crows, which the Rebecca room could be in.
That, yes.
It's coming together.
Let's get an architect. We need to make this a reality.
I did have a real question there.
About Daphne Du Maurier.
But that's okay.
Yes.
So you talk about her being an influence
for
Skyward Inn particularly. I mean, I guess that's a question. Is it Skyward Inn particularly, or is it kind of your writing in general that you find that influence in?
A huge influence on me, particularly because of Rebecca, which was the first time I realized how much fun it is to be surprised by a book, and then I found out the fun of writing a book that really surprises you. And I really strive for that. I love those moments where you don't know what's going to happen next, or a book takes a sudden turn and you think, oh my God, I actually have to go back and reread that because that's completely blindsided me. But the clues were there all along. I love that in a book. I find I'm quite often trying to do that. And certainly the first time I remember that happening to me was Rebecca. So yeah, it's a big influence. But her other books as well. I mean, there's a lot in common. It's many years since I read it, but she wrote a book called Rule Britannia, which is about Devon and Cornwall deciding to go their own way and leave the United Kingdom. So certainly that was in my mind somewhere, but it is many years since I've read it, and I'm kind of reluctant to revisit it just in case, since I've done my own thing in that sort of direction now. But yes, certainly she's a big influence.
Yeah, I completely agree with that kind of. I love reading a book where I get up to, say, a big surprise and then finish it, and then I will go around again and try and like pick out all the clues and unravel it. I love really getting my teeth into that.
Yes, that's so satisfying, isn't it? I love
that. Completely. Yeah. I think it's so interesting. I was talking to a friend not that long ago about Rebecca, and they really felt they didn't like it.
Yeah.
And this kind of touches on something we talked about a little while ago, and it was because it had been part of their English teaching when they were at school. So it was tied up with all those memories of being made to like really analyze it and dig into it and read like a certain bit. And I persuaded them to give it another go.
Yeah.
Kind of on the backdrop of going, you know, this is kind of what it's doing, you know, look for the clues and kind of really try and dig into that element of it. And they loved it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, I find, to think about how those books that we have to study, or those books that we like have to read or are told to read, how we end up like resenting them. And you were saying about Thomas Hardy that with the skipping, and kind of, do you think that comes from having to study it?
I think you develop strong emotions for those books that you're told you have to read for different reasons, but many of those experiences are actually books that, if you asked me, I would say that, you know, some of them are still my absolute favorite books, like D.H. Lawrence's The Rainbow. I had to read that for A-level. Gosh, I was just obsessed with it, loved everything about it, and I still find D.H. Lawrence creeping into things that I write. Just such an amazing voice. And then at the other end of the thing is, if you don't love it straight off, but then you've got to push on through it, right? And as you say, analyze every aspect of the text, and that then fosters a different kind of relationship with the text. They're really interesting, aren't they? I think, you know, my love of Shakespeare as well comes from, we did King Lear and Much Ado About Nothing, and gosh, I would say those are my two favorite Shakespeare plays over any other. So gave a terrible performance in Much Ado About Nothing. Sorry to everybody who ever witnessed that. Obsessed with that. So yeah, they build such strong relationships. It's that love-hate kind of coin, isn't it? In a way, you know, it's one side or the other. Having said that, there's probably some that I can't even remember now that I was probably made to read, and they've just gone through the mists of time. Don't know. What else was there? Poetry of Dylan Thomas. Loved that. Yeah. Canterbury Tales, not so much. Yeah.
No.
I don't have strong feelings about it either way. So yeah, it's really interesting, you know, and that they shape you, don't you, these books?
Yeah.
They shape who you are, particularly if you're a young avid reader. I think you get really shaped by some of these narratives. They're so powerful. Amazing. What did you study?
We did, what did we do? We did Midsummer Night's Dream a couple of times, which I didn't love at the time, but I saw in 2012. I know it was 2012 because the Olympics were on and everyone was going on about how busy London was going to be and we weren't going to be able to like park anywhere. And then we literally, it was at the Regent's Air, the open air, Regent's Park, the open air theatre they have there. My parents took me, and everyone was going on about not being able to park. We literally drove and parked like right outside, which is unheard of. So
everybody had been put off with the yeah.
So that's how I know it was 2012. But we saw a production of Midsummer Night's Dream there that took it to a modern day setting, but still with the magical elements. And really just played with it and just had fun with it. And I think that was the thing that had been missing, and not just with that, but with a lot of things we had to study, was it took the playfulness out, it took the fun out. And that really changed it for me, and now I would say it's one of my favorites. We did study Romeo and Juliet, and actually they showed us the Baz Luhrmann film version of it, to kind of try and get us into it, and that did a similar thing in terms of making it feel more connected to our reality as teenagers who are very absorbed in what we're doing at that moment and modern day and all that. So that was clever of that particular teacher to do that.
That's a good way in.
What else did we say? Oh, there was one book, and I don't even know what it is, but I just have this vivid memory of, I think I was still at primary school or just in secondary school, so quite young. And it was this one book, and it had been, I think it was vaguely fantasy-ish, but not full-on fantasy. And went through this whole book, read this whole book, and the end was, and he woke up, and it was all a dream. And I came storming. It was like after bedtime, because I was always reading, when I was meant to be asleep. And I remember storming downstairs to my parents, who were bewildered and just trying to have their evening, and just going, look at what this book did. My dad was he got me into reading. We read The Hobbit together when I was very young.
That's lovely.
And he was similarly outraged. He just couldn't believe that a book had actually done this.
On there, yeah.
I wish I could remember what it was, but I was just appalled. Like this little kid just having read this book, just desperately appalled at this ending.
I mean, I could never hurt a book. The worst I can do is throw it across the room. So that one would have got chucked, Yeah. That's the worst I can do. Like, there you go.
What was the process of writing Skyward Inn like compared to your other books and not just books, stories and works of all different lengths? And how do you find writing across sort of novel length or novella length? How does that differ?
So first off, in terms of writing Skyward Inn, it was a joy, actually. I really enjoyed writing it. That is not the case with all my books. But this one in particular just seemed to come very well. The one that preceded it, Greensmith, gosh, that was a struggle. But I kept saying to the people who kind of keep me going on a daily basis, just tell me to keep going. Every day I'll just put a little bit more. And what's weird is that I don't see those things later once the books are published. Then they all look pretty much, seamless to me. But at the time, there were joyous moments in Skyward Inn where it came together so well. But I think Greensmith needed a lot more planning, and the more I plan in advance, the less I tend to enjoy the process.
Right.
In the main. I don't know in advance what length something is going to be. I have like an intuition that something might be very short, very long. Nothing's really very long. I don't really write very long books, but long for me. But I don't really know where it's going to end up. And sometimes I might think, I can't remember what book it is. I thought this is going to be an enormous book. And then I got to about 50,000 words and thought, no, I've said everything I want to say, so I'm just going to finish that. So that happens too. So the process remains kind of essentially the same throughout. It's just pen and paper and see where it goes with these moments that I plan towards. But one of the more enjoyable writing experiences, up there with The Arrival of Missives. I think I really loved writing that one in particular as well. So
what is it about writing, out of interest, what is it about writing longhand that do you find it gives you something different, or is it just that's how it works best for you?
It doesn't come out right the other way, unless I'm in editing and then I'm adding in. Then sometimes I can write straight because it's got a real purpose. If I'm adding something in later on, I know exactly what size and shape it needs to be, and then I can just slot it in. But if I don't know where it's going to go within that process, I find it loses something if I just do it straight to a screen. I don't know why. I have terrible handwriting, so it's a real challenge later to read it back as well. So it's like writing the same book twice, really. It's what happens in a way. But I know other writers who've said that they do that, but they do it to screen. So they write the whole book once and then put it aside and write it again, straight to screen. But that does bear results, absolutely, because it gives it like a focus and a clarity. So maybe it's that process that I'm going through. It's like you have it in longhand and get to feel very involved with the business of the pen and the paper. I'm a doodler as well, so there's a lot of doodling that goes on. And then later on, the process of transcribing that onto the screen is then that second layer of, but usually that starts about halfway through writing it in longhand. So I don't wait until the end. So I guess I'm essentially in two parts of the book at the same time. So I'll hit a bit that I think, right, now I know what the book is kind of about, and then start transcribing the beginning as I'm writing the end. So sometimes I do think with my books, you get this kind of parallel mirror effect, certainly in something like The Loosening Skin, where the same thing seems to happen twice almost because I'm doing the same thing twice. But yeah.
That's really interesting. Yeah, it's almost like a first pass edit kind of in action.
Yeah.
I've got to stop thinking about what I'm doing. I'm in the middle of like actually trying to like really finish the book that I'm writing.
Yeah.
And it's just that bit at the moment, because I do a similar thing. I write not always longhand, but I will kind of do a first pass word vomit.
Yeah.
Or story vomit of just
I like that story vomit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Sort of semi-formed. It's sort of feeling driven. It's like sort of individual pieces that I know what this bit feels like or this bit feels like, and kind of do that. And then I'll stitch it together on a second pass. Right now I'm trying to do that second bit with the ending. And it's not playing ball.
Oh no, sticky
it's just
word
not
vomit.
Quite. Yeah, it's like the sticky nightclub word vomit floor of like a bad nightclub. So yeah,
push on through. Yeah, that's all you can do sometimes, isn't it? Just yeah. I do feel for you. Those moments are difficult.
Yeah, and it's you know, we talk about good surprises. This was a bad surprise, because the rest of it had like gone really well, and the rest of it was sort of coming together, and there were kind of a few sort of niggly bits, but it was, you know, working, and then suddenly it just hit this like sticky bit.
I hate that. Do you know, have you ever had it where you're writing and you've just disappointed yourself? It's like, oh, that's just no. Sometimes I actually just write in the margin like no. Rewrite.
Just that moment of where you're putting something down and you're just going, no, this isn't going to make it into the final cut.
Nope,
this isn't good. It will go here for now. But sometimes one of the things I really had to learn is to be able to let that go in order to come back to it.
You do,
I will kind of, they get stuck in your head, and you sort of got this one bit that you know isn't working, and you're trying to move on and go, I'll come back to it because I can't just push through it. That's not working either. And it will just be there like mocking me in the back of my head.
I leave rows of X's. I'm like, I can't make this work. X. Then I can find it easily. Like I could get to the typing up stage and I still don't have it. I can find it easily again if it's just a row of crosses. And maybe at that point I'll know what to do with it, or maybe it's going in the bin, one or the other, but we'll find it.
Yeah, it's true. I feel like a lot of trying to write a book, a lot of it for me is being able to let go of the stuff that maybe even bits you're really attached to, but just aren't working. And being able to be like, you know what, this isn't it. And I'm guessing if you have those moments, some of those maybe come back in other things.
They do, yeah. Like I wrote a book that had elements that I really loved. This is ages ago. It was kind of about Acapulco, weirdly, and I really liked the ideas in it, and I couldn't make it work, and I wrote the whole thing and then just put it aside. And then about 10 years later, I thought I'll just reread this, and running through it kind of like a seam of something decent in a whole pile of crappy rock was like a thing I could see, and just took those bits out and put them together, and it was a novelette that I really liked. I put it in my collection of short stories from the neck up that came out last year, and I was so pleased with that. But sometimes you just need that space. I mean, I don't think it needs to be a decade. That seems overlong to me. But certainly a few
sometimes
weeks,
you feel like you want it to be.
yes. To kind of see what you've created and where it's decent. But all writing is experience, I think, and you learn from everything, even if it's terrible. And I do believe you learn from reading everything, even if it's terrible as well. I mean, some of the best teaching experiences I've had are from books that maybe weren't the best written books in the universe, but you learn from that as well as learning from seeing somebody complete something in epic mastery, which can be daunting. If you can pick out other people's where it's gone wrong in other cases, I think that's good too, to be able to go, oh yeah, do you know what, I would have done that differently. But that's quite empowering for a writer. So
builds confidence in yourself. I feel like one of the things that I'm assuming must come with time, at least to some degree, is having the confidence that you can actually do this and write things that are good.
Well, you look back and go, maybe that one was okay, so I must have it in me somewhere. So maybe maybe okay, perhaps I can, but every time is daunting, always. And sometimes you have ideas and think, I don't know if I can make that work. So but then you just have to kind of feel the fear and go with it.
Yep.
If you're not feeling a little bit afraid, maybe you're not going for it all the way, maybe.
Yeah, that's true. That's
now
true.
I sound like an Olympic athlete, but you know what I mean.
Oh, well, that's okay. I have 2 reader questions that are kind of related-ish. One is kind of leads on from what we were just talking about before I took us on a tangent. We had a reader get in touch. They said that you've been shortlisted for lots and lots of awards. Do you find coming back to write again after that, or sort of when you've had that news, or or if something's been really well received or a great review or anything like that, do you find it brings sort of pressure to perform again?
Yeah, but in a way, because of the way writing works, you've already overcome the hump. You kind of have this feeling, but the thing that you wrote 2 years ago that's going to be released in 3 months' time, so it's not like one initially follows on from another. So I kind of take comfort in that. Also, I just think I'm one of those writers where I like surprising people, and it'd be a big surprise if everybody hated something, so that would be okay too. I don't know.
Oh, I love that.
I just write the things that I write, and all that side of it is not up to me. It's got very little to do with me in a way, and the part of the process that I like and I concentrate on is the bit where I go and I write, and that's it. Anything else isn't helping, I guess. So that makes me sound really sort of single-minded and determined. And it's so lovely to have good feedback and to be shortlisted for things, and I've been tremendously lucky in that regard. So that's brilliant. But yeah, it's just push on through. And the things that, you know, a release that I've written 3 or 4 years ago, I was in a different mindset, and I've moved on, and I can't do anything about it anyway. So just keep swimming. Just keep swimming. I can't believe I just used a Finding Nemo quote, but there we go.
Yeah, those children's movie makers know what they're doing.
Oh, don't they just?
They know what they're doing.
I think they get into my brain.
I can't. Everyone at the moment, there was a new one on, I think it's on Disney Plus, and everyone's singing a song from it, and it's all over TikTok, which I have become.
Encanto.
Yes. Yeah. I haven't seen it, and
oh gosh, I love it. Yeah.
Is it good?
Oh, it's good. Yes.
I have the kind of brain, stuff will just get stuck, and then I'm never gonna forget it. So I'm careful about like what I expose my brain to, because plan. Yeah. It seems like it's got stuck in everybody's minds.
Yeah. Once you Encanto, you can't un-Encanto. So
yeah. Once you Encanto, you can't un-Canto.
It's true.
Yeah. No, it's yeah. The other reader question I have is somebody got in touch and they wanted to know if you're likely to ever revisit the world of Skyward Inn.
Funny enough, out of all the ones I've written, that is the one that I could see me going back to. But as a general rule, I don't. I wouldn't say never in that particular regard. There are some elements of that book where I would love to go kind of 10,000 years into the future, or go to other planets where, you know, these processes that happen in Skyward Inn have taken place. Yeah, I liked a lot of that stuff, and I could see lots of room to do interesting things with it, but not right now. No. Maybe I'll do my 10-year policy and just wait 10 years and then come back.
Yeah. So in answer to that reader, maybe, but it's going to be a little while.
It would be a while. But you know, the thing that I love about writing is you're just there with your blank sheet of paper, and I start writing, and whatever comes out comes out. So if one day what comes out is a return to those characters, then that would be amazing, and I would go with that. So maybe, yeah.
Stay tuned.
Don't stay tuned very long, because you'd be sitting around for a long time. But yeah.
Yeah. What are you working on at the moment?
I've been writing a lot of short stories, which I've been really enjoying. They're kind of loosely linked. I'm co-writing a book with somebody else, and I am loving that process. So really enjoying that. I have done it before, actually, but a long time ago, and I'm enjoying the kind of backwards and forwards of different ideas and things like that. So, and I have written a new novel, which is kind of my COVID novel. Wondering if all writers have a COVID novel in them. I'm in the process of reading back over that at the moment and deciding what to do with that. So I'm not sure yet. But I have been writing, which is good, because when COVID all kicked off and whatever, I think, like a lot of writers, I suddenly thought, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I don't understand this world, or how to make sense of this on a page. Particularly, I think, because I had written virus-laden books beforehand.
Yeah. So predicting the future a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. Then you feel really uncomfortable, particularly in the areas I tend to write in. You're like, I don't really fancy any of these futures that I create, unfortunately. I took a break at that point, but I do seem to be back into it in a reasonable kind of way. So I'm feeling a bit more energized. So that's good. So we'll see. But yeah, it's good to be writing again.
So this is a question that I insist on asking every author, even though most of them just say no. I've had a couple people say yes, so I'm hanging on to that as like reassurance that this is a good question. But I find it interesting, so we'll go for it. What kind of thing do you listen to while writing, if anything? And or is there any music or anything like that that reminds you of this book, or do you find that about your books in general?
I do actually. I have sometimes I get stuck on a very particular piece of music for certain books. For instance, Greensmith is absolutely about Kate Bush's Big Sky. And I listen to it over and over and over and over and over again. So sometimes that happens. Three Things About Me was me and Bobby McGee. Yeah, I have like I'm always listening to music, but mainly in the jazz or classical kind of area because it's better without a voice. I find this is when I get to typing up, because otherwise I'm in the cafe and it's a bit obnoxious to be putting your own music on in a cafe.
Oh yeah, just go into the cafe, be like, hey, could you play this playlist?
Yeah, here we go. I need this for my art. Rimsky-Korsakov's Scheherazade I listen to a lot. That's like my go-to starting point. And I like Monteverdi as well. This all sounds really highbrow, but it's not really. It's just something in the background that inspires me or makes me feel I'm in the right mindset. And then, as I say, certain books have certain tunes that go with certain sections. I can't think of one for Skyward Inn, actually. I think a lot of that book was actually written in silence, which is different for me. Yeah, but I'm always quite intrigued by that. It's kind of when I get hooked on a certain piece of music, in that kind of goes through the theme of the book in a way. Yeah. So most authors say they don't.
Generally, yeah. Generally, they say they either don't listen to anything, or it's more like they'll go to a cafe or something and just have the ambient sound.
Yeah, that helps.
Very few opt for silence, so it's kind of somewhere in the middle usually. But most agree that music with lyrics is desperately unhelpful, because then you just end up writing the words. But yeah, most kind of just don't necessarily seem to connect with bringing music into the writing process as much. It's really interesting. I find it really interesting, which is why I insist on continuing to ask. But yeah.
What about you? Are you a music listener?
Oh yeah. I can't do anything in silence. My brain will not allow it. It's one of those things that I can never decide if, well, sometimes it's productive. So in terms of writing, I will always have some kind of music. I also like to playlist afterwards. So I'm working on that right now for my current project, of sort of a playlist of songs afterwards that feel like the characters or kind of feel like the book or whatever. I'm very sort of into music. And I do the same thing while writing. I'll have one piece that I will just play on repeat. Yeah. And that really helps. But yeah, part of always having something on is productive like that, and part of it is, I think, the millennial urge to not have a single feeling or thought.
Oh my god, I love that. Wow. Blot them out.
Yeah. The constant distraction of Netflix in the background of everything, or music, or
how many devices can we use at once? Let's put them all on.
Oh yeah. Oh well, that's the thing. Device. You know, in kind of your 9 to 5 work from home scenario, you spend all day looking at the big screen. And then to reward yourself at the end, you go look at the bigger screen while also looking at the small screen.
Yes.
So yeah. It's no wonder that my eyes hurt.
It's dreadful, isn't it? But we're all the same, particularly as you say with the pandemic. It's kind of like screens for everything. Screens for loved ones, screens for work, screens for me time.
And everything all in the same space. Everything all at home. And that's really changed my writing as well. Because before that was the thing that I did at home. If I was doing a worky thing or a creative thing, a productive thing, the writing would be the one I do at home. Work is outside. Socializing is mostly outside. So the downtime is at least in a different room or in a different area or a different space. And now it's all kind of in the same space. And I think it feels like a thing a lot of people are having, where it's just sort of fatigue of everything being intertwined all the time.
Yes, absolutely. I think what really got me was when exercise then became in the same area in front of a screen as well. I just think, actually, I need to leave the room at some point. Dreadful, isn't it?
It started to feel a bit sci-fi, just all being in our boxes.
I feel like we're in Fahrenheit 451, and you've got you're saving up for the fourth wall to just turn your house into this giant screen, and then you'll just be sucked into it completely.
I know you don't like describing what stuff's about, but if you are able to, it would be great if you could kind of just place us more in terms of sort of where we are in the story, where we are in the book.
I can make that easy and say we're at the very beginning. Let's just do the
excellent.
Let's do that.
Perfect. That makes that really, really easy.
So we're going to start right at the beginning, where we're introduced to Skyward Inn and the two people who run it. One who's the narrator at this point is called Jem. She's human, and the person she runs the bar with is called Isley, and he's from a different planet. Okay, I'll just go for it. Here we go. Leaping in.
Go for it.
They've drunk their drinks and sung their songs, and it's time for them to head for home. I wave them off, turn my back on the first streaks of light in the sky, and close the door to the inn. Isley says, his voice soft and self-mocking, alone at last. He says this every time we've got the place to ourselves. He practiced his English on tongue base, millions of miles away, by watching old films. And sometimes I can imagine the kind of drama he thinks we're in. The lamps on the walls are burning low. I love this time between times. It's a soft grey bleed from night into morning. Pour, I say. I walk back to the bar and pull up the well-used stool with the cracked leather top. The smell of the heaped glass ashtray between us is very strong, and I slide it to one side. The ash settles into the grooves patterning its rim. The glasses Isley pulls out are his good ones. We're getting a taste from the best bottle. I smile when I see him lift it from under the counter, an automatic reaction to that conical shape in the orange clay from his world. Special occasion? You don't remember? He pulls out the cork with his thick, blunt teeth and tips the clear liquid into the glasses. I thought you remembered everything. It's the 13th of September. It's not any anniversary I can think of, and we have drunk to them all. It's 7 years since I first told you I love you, he says, and he clinks his glass against mine. That was in this bar, and I was sitting on this very seat. His chin trembled when he said it, and I remember I thought only that I wanted him to not be scared of what comes next, of where love leads. I told you I loved you too, I said. I didn't even have to think about it. The words came easily. Are they still true? He frowns into the glass he holds just below his mouth. When he drinks, the moment will be over with, done. It's impossible to feel bad with Jarrow brew in your body. Everything I say to you is true, I tell him, but it sounds unreal, so I add, at least I try to make it that way. You do try, he agrees, and that's why I still love you now. It's a good thing to drink too. We drink. Here it comes, here it is, the sweetness I associate with fields, and the depth I think of as the sea. The soft light it brings to my mind belongs to the sky of Kita, What do the regulars at our inn feel when they drink brew, I wonder? Most of them have never been off this planet or even out at the Westward Protectorate. They must translate it into their own experiences, which are no less potent, I'm thinking, just miniaturized, pin sharp, unshakable, mired in the thick grasses of the West Country moor. Jem, he says, you know Tulu, where the rock divides? Did you ever go there? I did. Did you look at the fossils in the heart of the rock? I fix Isley with my patient eyes. You know I did. I went to all the places with my leaflets. Yes, he says softly, your leaflets, your letters of peace from Earth to Kita. You put them up everywhere you went for us to find. He sounds so sad. I give him what he wants and what he never asks for directly, a description of his homeworld. It's changed, of course, but here, right now, in my words, it hasn't. Not for us, on our different sides, meeting in the middle. We go.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, and in general for coming on the show and for having this tangent-filled and excellent conversation with me.
Thank you. That was really fun. It was really good to chat about a lot of different things. So
yeah, we love a tangent. We love a tangent
definitely.
on this show. And they're unavoidable with the way that my brain works. Thank you so much again to Aliya for being on the show. This was genuinely such a fun record, and I think you can really hear that in the final episode, so I hope you all enjoy it as much as we did. If you'd like to get your very own copy of Skyward Inn, you can get 20% off the ebook and the paperback when you buy direct from Rebellion Publishing's web store, as a thank you for being a book club listener. At checkout, all you need to do is enter code ABC22SK. That's ABC22SK. In our next episode, episode 10, I'm delighted to be joined by the brilliant Edward Ashton, whose fantastic book, Mickey 7, was released back in February and is already being adapted into a major movie by the Oscar-winning genius director of Parasite, Bong Joon-ho, and is set to star the Batman himself, Robert Pattinson. Make sure you join me for that, and in the meantime, happy reading!